When you start to, if we're using his side, her side, and the truth, when he and her start to date, typically the first few dates, both he and her are putting their best foot forward. They're trying to emphasize their qualities and attributes, their positive attributes, and de-emphasize their problems and their childhood traumas and all that. So is that it? Like, we're always, by necessity, playing pretend a little bit, and we're competing in a way too, right? Like, trying to get the best mate or get the best job or the best deal, whatever it is. So we're always using that little bit of separation between the cold hard truth and the narrative to try and wiggle that space to our advantage in a way. And maybe that the aggregate outcome of that are these psyops that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that your example isn't inaccurate. For sure, there's that wiggle room that we're using because we're seeking acceptance. Mm-hmm. His and hers is a fantastic example. When we date, we're looking for acceptance. Mm-hmm. We want to be accepted into each other's good graces. We want to be accepted into each other's lives. We want to be accepted into each other's beds, mm-hmm. right? There's a lot of acceptance going on. Mm-hmm. The other thing that comes to my mind when you talk about this is that we're taught at the agency that everybody has 3 lives, right? 3 lives. There's a public life, a private life, and a secret life. The public life is the life that you're talking about right now. We emphasize our strengths. We obfuscate our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities. We try to make ourselves look stronger than we are, more courageous than we are, smarter than we are, so that we will be accepted, because that's the persona we want to project to others. It's something that we do unconsciously. It's something that we're conditioned to do from childhood, because that's just the way human beings connect and collaborate, right? We want to look attractive to others. So that's all of our public life. Mm-hmm. Everybody who's a friend, everybody who's an associate, everybody who's a professional connection, they're all part of your public life. Mm-hmm. But then you have a private life too. Mm-hmm. Now, your private life is for a much smaller group of people, mm-hmm. right? Intimate friends, intimate family. If in your public life, people think that you're super smart, in your private life, they know that your breath actually smells. They know that you're lactose intolerant, mm-hmm. right? They know that you have a weird patch of hair that grows on your lower back, right? Your intimate family, your kids, your wife, your, whatever, your parents, they know that about you. But that's okay, because they're part of your private life. Right. They can see through the public life, and they know who you really are in private. But then we still have a third life, a secret life. And inside that secret life, we may never let anyone in. Wow. We may only let 1 or 2 people in. In that secret life is where our shame lives. It's where our guilt lives. It's where those secrets live.
Insecurities.
The things that you and I have done, that we know we've done, that we've never told anybody ever. And there's many more of those secrets than any of us have ever cared to remember. Yeah. Right? Even as we say this, I know they're
coming up. Yeah.
Right? If you tell somebody one of those secrets, you're letting them into your secret life. Now, what CIA tells us is so powerful about this is that once you let someone into your secret life, you never let them out. So you can move someone from public life into private life, and if they disappoint you or let you down, you can move them back to public life, right? They go back and forth. But when you move someone from private life to secret life, and you share that level of vulnerability with them, even if you're mad at them, disappointed by them, don't trust them, you never really let them out of your secret life. So espionage is a game of getting people to let you into their secret life.
Wow.
Because then you gain all the leverage. You gain all the power. You know that they've been cheating on their wife since they were married 3 years. You know that they have 2 illegitimate kids. You know that they're secretly addicted to cocaine. You know that they love child pornography. You know, whatever it is. You know their secrets in their secret life. And they can't help but trust you, because you are the only other person carrying the burden of those secrets.
Wow.
Right? And when someone else carries the burden of your secrets, you're intrinsically connected to them.
And that's why you can't remove them.
Because their loyalty to you is unending.
Wow. And then once you have gained access to their secret life, you have the dirt on them. Presumably that's a very high leverage possession or control mechanism, right?
We call it coercion.
Coercion, yeah.
It's a tool called coercion. Now, coercion is the weakest of all tools to use, which is why when you get the dirt, the most valuable thing to understand is that you never want to exploit the dirt. What you always want to do is sell them the hope behind the dirt, right? Like, I know you've got a problem with opioids. I know you're addicted to opioids. And I know you've been hiding it from the whole world. And one day, together, we're going to get you past it. But today, you need to perform, and you need your opioid today, right? So today, I need you to go and have this meeting and get this secret and come back and bring it to me so that we can change the world. And we're not going to do that if we start cleaning you up today.
So is that part of the espionage game then? Is to get into their secret world, know that weak point or point of high leverage, and then you just press that point to inspire the behaviors that suit your interest or your boss's interest, I guess.
That's not part of the game. That is
the game.
That is what makes a spy worth the $2.5 million of training that they get.
Wow.
To learn how to do that systematically and predictably.
Wow.
With any culture, any gender, any age, any level of education.
That's incredible. Well, that sounds like some cool schooling too.
It's super cool schooling, and it's a great tool to have. And it serves in business and in the commercial world too, because people still have secret lives.
Yeah.
And when a client lets you into their secret life, for any reason, their secret fears or shame or guilt about their business, or their shame or their fears about failing their family, when they let you in, when you can help them through that, when you can make them stronger, when you can make them more courageous, they love you for it. And you're improving the productivity of them and their business that they're own and the business they're part of, and the country that you're in, and the legacy that you're leaving.
I was just going to say, because to gain access to someone's secret life also sounds like deep best friendship or something you'd want with your significant other. So it's weird that the game of espionage is to gain access to that secret life, but that's also the game of love, right? Between friends or between romantic partners, that you want to have someone that you can divulge or invite into that secret life and be invited into their secret life.
Right. You want it, but at the same time, if we're being honest with each other, we kind of don't. Right? When I sit across from my wife and she's having a hard day, I love my wife. I don't really want to be part of that, right? She's got all sorts of secret life drama going on. She's got stuff coming up from her childhood. She's got, grief from her grandmother dying, and she's got guilt about being a mom. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm really comfortable in the private life where I know you have guilt and grief and shame and fear, but I really don't want to be part of it right now, right? And that's really what the game of love tends to be. And that's why we have a crazy 52% divorce rate or something like that, right? Because we don't really actually want anyone in our secret life, and we really don't want to put the investment into being part of somebody else's secret life.
So then,
because the ROI isn't there.
Right. Are you then also trained, if you're trained to infiltrate the secret lives of others, are you also trained to prevent infiltration of your own secret life?
Absolutely. The tool that we use for that is something called know, like, trust. So there's a process in which you meet somebody, right? When you don't know somebody, they're a stranger to you. You never have to worry about that person gaining access to your secret life. So then you meet the person. Now that's the know, the K and KLT, the know and know, like, trust. Now you know the person exists. But knowing the person exists doesn't necessarily mean you like them. So over time, you realize you have things in common, you think the same way, you have, similar ideals, you grew up in similar households, whatever else. Over time, you start to develop a liking for somebody. This is where things get dangerous, because as you learn to like somebody, you absolutely naturally and unintentionally slip into trusting them. Anybody who's ever been let down, anybody who's ever trusted somebody that didn't deserve their trust knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's very easy to fall into a pattern of not knowing someone exists, and then you know them, and then you get along really great and you like them, and before you know it, you act in ways where you trust them, even though you have no reason to trust them. That's know, like, trust. What we're trained as CIA operatives is that when know, like, trust happens quickly, that's a big red flag, that you're dealing with somebody who's trained. Because a trained person can get you through KLT in an immense amount of time. The average time it takes for a CIA officer to get into the secret life of a target is 9 months. For especially hard targets, like the people who inherently distrust Americans or inherently distrust the United States, that process becomes more like 15 to 18 months. But that's our system. We know how frequently, how often, what to talk about, what to bring things, like what to bring up, what to push on, so that we can get into a target's secret life within 9 months.
Wow.
Right? Most engagements last more than 12 months. Most dating relationships exceed 2 years. Right? So I mean, that's 3 years from meeting to marriage on average, and people still aren't in each other's secret life.
Wow.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
Then I guess you end up with this inner sanctum of secret life as a trained covert operative to you'd never connect that with anyone else in the world.
Or when you do, it's a very intentional choice, right? Like my wife is a former CIA officer.
Mm-hmm.
I trust my wife explicitly. I trust her implicitly. I trust her completely.
Mm-hmm.
I still have things I would never tell her.
Wow.
And she knows that. And she understands that because when I tell her that there are secret life topics that I don't want to share with her, she knows that those must be so fucking dark, so shameful, so significant that it's going to negatively impact her to even hear about them. So she's okay not being part
So
of
she
it.
doesn't pry. She doesn't try to, what was it? No,
like trust.
No, like trust. She doesn't try to infiltrate.
She knows that I trust her already.
Yeah.
Right. And I trust her enough to tell her, you don't fucking want to know about that. Right.
That's something kind of beautiful that you guys have this vernacular to understand human psychology, even competitive human psychology, in a way that you can discuss these things that might otherwise destroy a marriage, right? Like you might sense someone holding on to that secret life and maybe the other partner's like, oh, tell me, I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. And that could either drive the other partner nuts or they end up letting them in and it was so dark it could blow up. But you guys actually have a framework for talking about these things and dealing with them in a, I guess, healthy way. Sounds like you're happily married.
Yeah. Well, and this is the framework we teach our clients.
Yeah.
So our clients can have the same conversations with us, right? So I can talk to a client and I can say, I feel like we're butting up against a secret life issue here. Is that true? And they can say, yeah, it's a secret life issue. And I can give them the option like, hey, do you want to let me into that? Or do you not want to let me into that? Right. And similarly, we can teach them personality profiling and we can teach them how they can use this vernacular with their spouse, with their children, with their business partner, right? How many businesses have failed because partners can't connect?
It's communication. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's incredible the wealth of commercial and business experience and expertise that CI sits on every day.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it because they can't monetize it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been the big blessing that I've had. I don't claim to be the best. I'm not the best ex-CIA officer. I wasn't the best CIA officer. I'm not the best businessman. I'm just the first person who's been able to connect and teach this language so people can use these skills practically and immediately in the everyday world.
That's so cool. Okay. So we were talking about the secret life and you had mentioned that once an operative gains access to one's secret life, they can then leverage that access to coerce them into certain behaviors. And you said at that point that coercion was one of, and I think you said like the lightest of these weapons. I think you may have said weapons, I'm not sure. What are the other items or weapons or categories besides coercion?
Yeah, so what we're talking about here are core motivations.
Okay.
And core motivations are levers that you can use to control someone's behavior. And there's 4 of them. And they break into a acronym that we at the agency call RICE, R-I-C-E. The R stands for reward. Reward is the first core motivator. The second is ideology. And we spent a lot of time talking about ideology today, right? C is coercion. E is ego.
Okay.
So every human being.
Sorry, what was the R?
The R was reward.
Reward, okay.
Yeah. So every human being, and we define human beings at the agency as anybody with a neurotypical brain.
Okay.
Right. So somebody who's on the autistic spectrum is still a human being, but we may not be calling them average or typical, right? We'd be talking about them as on the spectrum versus a typical human being, right? But a typical human being basically has these 4 core motivators, and everybody has a natural tendency towards one of the 4 more than any other, but all 4 will work for all people. when you look at the four in terms of significance and power to actually drive a behavior or control a behavior, they're not equal. The strongest of the four is ideology. If you can ideologically connect with somebody, if you can get into their secret life and create or twist their ideology, you essentially have the strongest control over that person you could have. And we've seen this. We've seen this in highly religious communities. You've seen this in extremist terrorist groups. You've seen this in, abusive relationships, right? People can cling to an ideology so strong that they abandon rational thought.
They attach their entire identity to the ideology.
Correct.
So is this where you get divisiveness between left and right wing or vaxxer, anti-vaxxer? It's like people, they tie their identity to the ideology.
Exactly. And then that person becomes very easy to control.
Yes. If you control the ideology.
If you control the ideology or if you direct the ideology, right?
Yeah.
So you've got it, right? And that's one of the four core motivators. That's the strongest. The second strongest is ego. And most people would say that that's fairly obvious, right? When we talk about ego, we're not talking about egotistical. Two different things, right? Egotistical means somebody who thinks it's all about them. Ego has to do with how you want to be perceived by others. So a very sacrificial person who is not at all egotistical still has an ego. They actively make the sacrifices that they make publicly because they want to be seen as a sacrificial person. They want to be seen as a giver. They want to be seen as a leader. They want to be seen as selfless, right? They have an ego.
Right.
It's just not what we typically call egotistical.
So is that then the actions they're taking to create their public life?
Correct.
Is their ego? Okay.
Correct. They're shaping their public life because of the ego they want to protect or project, right? So RICE, reward, ideology, coercion, and ego. Ideology is the strongest of the four. Ego is the second strongest. The weakest is coercion. Because if you recall, we're in someone's secret life. We have used the know, like, trust process to build trust with this person to gain access to their secret life. Well, now once we use a coercive technique, once you hold a gun to someone's head, once you give them an ultimatum, once you say, that once you demonstrate a threat that leverages or leans into their shame or their guilt or, their abuse, once you do that, you inherently break part of the trust that they have in you. You introduce the question, the shadow of doubt. Should I trust this person? Should I listen to this person? And even though you're in their secret life, it's very unlikely they're ever going to let you out, right? But that doesn't mean that they're going to give you full cooperation inside their secret life. And that's why coercion is so dangerous, because you only get one chance. If you coerce somebody one time and you're caught, you never get back to where you started ever again. If you've ever been cheated on by a girlfriend or lied to by a family member,
Right.
You never get back to where you were.
Permanent, yeah, for sure.
So coercion it's very high risk for very low return.
Right.
Now, does that mean that we don't coerce people sometimes? No, not at all, because coercion still works.
Yes.
You just have to be prepared that if you're going to coerce, it's never going to be the bond, the connection, the control will never be as strong as it was the first time.
Is it more than a measure of last resort?
That's exactly
You prefer ideology or ego before coercion?
Yep. And then, of course, the missing piece is reward. And reward is difficult because reward changes, right? I would have done a lot of things for $1,000 when I was 18. I wouldn't do much for $1,000 right now, right? And the rewards change. A week of vacation paid in Tahiti sounded nice then. I don't really want a week off, and I don't really want to get on a plane to Tahiti. And I've got 2 kids and a wife and a household I have to worry about too. So rewards are constantly shifting. So the power that comes along with being able to control those rewards is also constantly shifting.
Yes.
There was a day where you and I probably would have put our name down on a piece of paper to win a free car or to win a free, holiday trip.
Free anything.
Oh yeah, right? We would have put our name and our email address and our phone number. We would have
said when we were 18.
Yep. But now nobody gets my phone number and my name for free.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't, that's not how it works.
What is that framework called? You said it's RICE. What are those core motivators?
Yep. Your core motivational levers.
And so money obviously is a major reward lever.
Correct.
And so it makes sense that if you can monopolize and control a money supply, you can centrally manage that R in a lot of people.
Yep, exactly. And money is also part of an ideology.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that most people don't understand. Most people the people who accuse others of being greedy completely miss the point. Most people who may appear greedy are actually not greedy.
Yeah.
They don't want money just because they want money. There's an ideology that they're carrying that is inherently tied to what the money can bring.
Yes.
The money brings security. The money brings options.
Yeah.
The money brings respect. The money brings power.
Yeah.
It's not the money itself. It's an ideology that's connected through the money.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's Mises always says no one wants to increase the quantity of money they have. Actually, it's the purchasing power that they want. So it's the options that the money affords you. And it is interesting because money has an ideological side to it, which you would think was just subjective at that point. Like we could make glasses money or bananas money or anything. But there are objective constraints to what functions as good money, which I guess is sort of super ideological in a way. So it's interesting, but even on our US dollar bills, in God we trust, right? There's ideology right there on the dollar bill. But there are also things beyond just the ideology that determine what makes good money and bad money. So it kind of crosses both worlds, it seems like.
Right. And that's what makes money such an interesting and complex thing.
Yeah.
Whenever anybody tries to boil it down to something simple, there's educational value in thinking about money as something simple, but you're missing the nuance. You're missing the more sophisticated understanding that could be had if you think of it